Many of you will already have had the pleasure of seeing Jim's photographic presentations in the past, and I'm very delighted to welcome him back again today with his talk on Shropshire wildlife. So, Jim Almond. Thank you.
What a crowd. Blown away. Yeah, you're going to have to use the main auditorium now, aren't you? If you get any more, if you've all got your membership cards. Where's mine? Yeah, we can have the lights down. I'll sort of dive straight in because I'm anxious to get through the talk and then treat you to a nice little audio-visual finale, which usually sends you off in a nice frame of mind, I think. And the talk is Shropshire wildlife. It's unashamedly full of lots of birds, of course, so I'm sure you won't mind. And I've got my other passions, which are usually flying insects, like dragonflies, damselflies, butterflies, moths, and I've even sneaked in the odd mammal, so there is truly a good representation of Shropshire wildlife for you all. That's a little view of Venus Pool, which is a place I'm sort of usually inseparable from, but there'll be a few pictures from there, but elsewhere throughout the county. And if you've never chanced upon my website, it's called Shropshire Birder. It's always a good place to visit if you're going somewhere new or you've got some ideas of where you'd like to go bird watching or other things in Shropshire. And if you go in on the site and just check out the locations, birding on the nature locations, you'll find those little blue place marks will even plan your route if you click on them as well. And individually tell you where to go, when to go, because that's key. If you want to see a ringoozle on Titterstone Clee, you don't go just any time, you go the first 2 weeks of April. That's the only time you'll see them there, so there's my first tip of the day. And then if you check out my blog, which is accessible, just Google Shropshire Birder and you'll be there. It'll tell you about any adventures with things like ringoozles or who knows what. And this is a map showing the little red dots are locations of Shropshire Wildlife Trust reserves or areas, and these are well worth visiting, especially after some of the creatures I'll be showing today. So the whole of Shropshire has a lot to offer. You've just got to go out there and find it, and we're hopefully just going to inspire you to go back to your youth and start chasing butterflies. Well, not literally, don't go breaking legs, and certainly don't take a net. Nowadays you take your camera and just photograph creatures rather than, it's not very pleasant for them to get caught in a net and then handled, so treat nature with respect. Now I'm going to start off with whilst the theme is Shropshire wildlife, you can probably find these all over the country if they're in the country. But I'm going to start off with waxwings because they're everyone's favourite winter bird, I think. But will they appear? And you don't need to go to nature reserves for these. You just go shopping. You either go to a retail park, or if you've been clever enough to plant a sorbus tree or a berry tree in your garden, then you'll have waxwings with a bit of luck with the redwings and field fairs sometime during the winter. And they always make delightful photographs, don't they? They're colourful birds, and even if, as you see there, the berries aren't quite so attractive, all of them, they usually find a brightly coloured one. And I remember I was actually not twitching waxwings at one stage, I was twitching berries, trying to get the most attractive ornamental berries, and these took my fancy. I drove all the way to Hereford actually to photograph this particular sorbus tree in someone's front garden. That's always a bit of a challenge. You have to make sure your camera isn't on a line with the house bedroom and things like that. It's quite awkward. But it was all worth it for this particular shot. Even got a toss of the berry in the mouth. And how big a berry do you think a waxwing can swallow? Well, the largest I've seen is this one, a rose hip. My goodness. Yeah, there'll be a few pictures like this in the talk just to amaze you what birds and other creatures can do. Now I'm going to take you back to the winter of 2010-11. Do you remember that? That's my number plate spells the temperature, I think, in minus figures, -10. And this is at Shrewsbury Park and Ride at the Meal Brace area, you know, and just like all the retail parks, they've planted lots of sorghum trees, and you know, while you're waiting for your bus, you could admire the waxwings. This is what they were like. Trouble is, in these sort of conditions, dense cloud and snow underneath, you get very monochrome conditions, but the colours somehow seem to shine through. Just look at them, you know, just picking off the berries, and for everyone they pick, several fall to the ground. So what do you do then when you've eaten all the ones that are, you know, tasty enough in the tree? Yeah, you go down to them. And what do you do when you've eaten all the ones that are on the surface? Well, you start digging for them. Yes. And if all else fails, if you're not doing your shopping, or well, this is the next picture's next to Newport, Sainsbury's, I think it was, and there we are. One of my favourite shots, because that hoarfrost after 3 nights of you know, minus double figures was incredible. So it's they couldn't actually get to the berries. A, they were covered in frost, and B, they were frozen solid. And some of the other creatures managed to eke out an existence through these harsh times. If the water's still flowing, then it's business as usual. But would you want to stick your bill and head into that sort of icy water? Well, birds, of course, they're just used to it. It's you know, their normal experience. And these are common snipe, of course. Some of our other regular visitors during the winter are swans, the wild swans, Buicks and hoopers, and if you're not quite sure how to identify them, the easiest way, these are Buick swans. The little, you know, I suppose memento you need to remember is they always have less yellow than black. So or more black than yellow, whichever way around you want to remember it. See how small the yellow mark is on the bill? And interestingly, I've managed to photograph this rather freak Siamese twin pair of Buick swans. Or could it be they're just passing each other? The camera occasionally lies. But that shows quite nicely how the yellow never quite reaches the nostrils. So keep that in your mind. That's a Buick swan, or 2 of them. These are hooper swans, which the yellow passes the nostrils, so there's always more yellow than black. And if you're vaguely thinking, well, what's the difference between them and the mute swan? It's rather obvious, isn't it? You know, that yellow bill. And at Venus Pool, in this one picture, even though the Buicks on the far side are out of focus, that's the only time I've had all 3 species in the camera frame, which is pretty amazing, that actually. Hooper swans, a mute in the middle, and then 4 Buick swans. And you can see how small they are. You know, the camera, even though they're further away, it does show quite nicely how small they actually are. And one of the tips with photography is, if you can do it, and my back won't let me do this very often, if you can lie on the ground, get as low to your subject as you can, then you get this lovely or more pleasing angle with the water not being such a harsh wall behind the picture. So those are swans, but we're sticking with the theme of white, and this is a cattle egret. It's a rare Shropshire bird, but nevertheless one was at Venus Pool last year, and another one in the Ellesmere area this year. So just like little egrets 25 years ago, they were national rarities. Birds colonised the UK and then gradually moved their range northwards from the south, which is where they usually are. Now you'd expect a cattle egret to be with cattle, wouldn't you? So this was a bit of a surprise. This is a sheep egret, evidently. But cattle is a misnomer. It's any grazing creature. The dung that they create and the droppings always attract flies, and that's what the cattle egrets feed on. And there's a difference between a cattle egret and a little egret. The cattle egret is slightly smaller, as you can see there, but the bill says it all. You know, nice yellow bill. And this particular character was Venus Pool in 2017. But they've got an elder cousin, and this is the largest egret, which is now, it's actually breeding in the southwest, and it won't be long. We're seeing far more of these now in Shropshire before we see these as breeding birds one day maybe. And this is the great white egret. This is larger than a heron, so it really is the most impressive of the egrets, and even more so when you see it landing. And when it's on water, of course, if you've got calm water, you can sometimes get a lovely reflection shot, which makes a picture. Don't you agree? Always very nice. Right, so I'm just going to take you to Wood Lane now. Might have something apart from a bird in a moment, but nevertheless, I'll treat you to the identity of this. I don't know if anyone recognises this particular bird. It's a gull, of course. It's not a black-headed gull, even though it's got a black head. It's a Mediterranean gull. And this was the parent of the first breeding occurrence in Shropshire of Mediterranean gulls. What are they doing in Shropshire, breeding? It just shows anything can happen. There's the youngsters. It's the three on the right of the middle of the picture. They do look different to the black-headed gull to the left. And there they're having a lovely dinner served up by the parents as she regurgitates the stomach contents for the youngsters. Very nice, aren't they? There we go. And Wood Lane has also been the one place that avocets have turned up in the past. These breed in the Midlands, in Worcestershire for certain. They've yet to do this in Shropshire, but I'm sure the day will come. So these four were back in 2008. That was the first occurrence in modern times of avocets, and we have had a pair or two since, but they haven't quite settled down. But lovely birds, and hope they keep coming. And well, I won't tell you what this is. Anyone has a guess? This was at Wood Lane, and I just spotted this head sort of swimming through the water. Any ideas? Anyone can have a go? Or what, sorry? It's not an otter? It's not a water vole? It's not a water rat? Beaver? That's a good try. It's not a beaver. Mink? That's a very good try. Not a mink. Whoa, I gotcha. No, it's not a martin. A shark. There's probably one following it. Well, I'll give you another picture. It's actually coming out of the water now. So it's not quite long, is it? It's not very long. You'll get it when I show you the next one. Yes, it's a rabbit. Did you know rabbits could swim? I didn't, but he's whether he's bounded through the water, and now you can see it's definitely a rabbit. No trickery there. Goodness knows what had made it jump into the water as a threat or fell in. Who knows? We'll never know. But nevertheless, off he went. And of course, that's a rabbit. I've taken photographs of these things in the past. My daughter, though, always chastises me if I call them that, because this is a bunny. Bunnies are sweet, aren't they? Cute. Unless they're in your garden, of course. I suppose one step up from bunnies, hares, and you can find them throughout Shropshire. They've always got this aura of, I want to see a hare, I want to photograph a hare, and they always look a bit miserable to me. Sorry to be, I don't know if it's the fact that this one was, I had a good session at this after a heavy rainstorm, and every picture seemed to tell a story, didn't it? Am I going to get wet again? I'm not sure if I ought to go for that. And yes. Perhaps next time I'll include some happier pictures of hares, but they are charismatic creatures, aren't they? Wixle Moss in the north of the county, and not far from Wem, and find all the directions on my website if you've never been there. It's one of nature's real wild places, and do go on there with a compass and a ball of string for your first time and a map, because it's about a mile across, and wherever you are, it looks like that. You turn around and you can soon become very disorientated. So either go with a friend or sort of make very careful notes as to where you walked in and keep to the main tracks. Otherwise, you tend to fall into a bottomless ditch. But it does have some amazing birds and creatures on there. It's the one place, although the number of perches for them now has decreased. Great grey shrike were regular visitors there in the winter. There's a typical view down one of the paths, which are very easy to walk across. Do take boots or some sort of waterproof footwear if it's been raining, because there's a lot of boggy areas. And another winter visitor is short-eared owl. It's probably the one place, apart from the long wind, that you can guarantee to see these in Shropshire. And sometimes, never too closely, so I made the best use of that in this picture. It's almost like an oil painting, isn't it? The grass and the birch trees, and there is a secondary to the picture. And you never know what's going to turn up here, and we've had 2 spoonbills in the area, and glossy ibis, so the floods just adjacent to the reserve of Wixell Moss itself is currently being... well, the plans are ahead now to actually turn the floods into a sort of nature reserve there by the Wildlife Trust. Right, and look, moving on from birds, it's got one of the UK's most exciting dragonflies, or should I say a darter. This is white-faced darter, and you've got to drive up to Scotland. If you don't see them in this reserve in Shropshire, next stop is Scotland before you'll see another one. So they're incredibly rare. And they just rely on this natural peat moss, the acidity and habitats that encourages, and food are plenty for them. So that's white-faced darter, and there's his white face. I'm sure most of you remember as a child the sound of cuckoos, and it's one of those challenges nowadays to go out and find your first cuckoo in April or whenever. But Wixell Moss is as good a place as any, and they breed there. Here's a juvenile. This one's not long left the nest, and there'll be a poor small bird of some description, meadow pipit perhaps, who's had the task of feeding that giant of a youngster for the first few days and then a couple of weeks of life. And don't have nightmares about this next picture, but there's always lots of raft spiders as well. And, oh, these are giants. You wouldn't want these scuttling across your carpet, I can tell you. But yes, and that's a female, and you see that little ball of something underneath. That's her egg casket. She's very protective. She goes everywhere with her babies, or her eggs, and eventually these will hatch out, and you'll have lots of baby raft spiders. This is the largest spider in Britain, actually, and some of them in other areas of the country, absolute monsters. And they eat fish. They could give you a nasty nip, so don't be tempted to pick them up. I didn't think you would, though. And the butterflies of the flora always helps, and there's plenty of wildflowers there. So brimstone are quite common throughout the county, but there are incredible numbers there. And the males, as you can see, they're yellow. You don't often see the females quite so much because they're white, and I suppose even though they're early, they do get confused with white butterflies. But you can probably tell that this one here is a female. This is and I don't know what these guys are queuing up there, but something is about to happen. This is one of the problems with insects. Their first reflex action once they hatch out is to mate. So males and females, they will both be doing whatever. So we'll see this sort of thing going on with not just butterflies, with dragonflies in a moment. This is a pair of meadow browns, and I suppose the butterfly of all butterflies, which is prized on Wixell Moss, it's another very rare one nationally, and that's the large heath. Again, it's that special habitat there that ensures that this will be there as long as the cotton grass on which it feeds is there to keep it sustained. So that's large heath. And moving on from large heath, we're going to Prees Heath. This is another little, very small reserve up past the village of Prees. You know, the old aircraft hangars, etc. I think it's sign marked now when you get there, but it's in between Prees and Whitchurch, just on the right hand side as you go along the strait. And this is home to another butterfly, which again you'd have to go to the North Wales coast to see other examples of it. The silver-studded blue, very attractive. It gets the names if you look in the wings, the black granules just before the wing edge. They've got those tiny little silvery blue granules, and that's how it gets the name silver-studded blue. So that's a male. There it is, slightly open in its wings. There's the full wings. It's described as indigo blue, so it's a deeper shade, much deeper than the common blue we usually see in the county. That's the male, and that's the female. Most female blue butterflies are brown, so just one of those things. The male has to be showy, and the female somewhat lacklustre for some reason. Not a bit like human beings, are they? There's some delightful ladies here tonight. And they have a habit of landing almost anywhere, and yes, land on your nose if you like. I suppose as you march through the common butterflies, I'll deal with some the more common ones in a moment, but always prized amongst people looking for unusual butterflies are the fritillaries. And basically you've got to go at the right place at the right time to see these. They don't generally come in gardens unless you really are out in the wilds. But this is the pearl bordered fritillary. The original one, the first one was taken at Lannamunnock, and here's the underwing of it. And they get the name pearl bordered for those little white. Where's my little pointer? I've got it, so I'll use it. Along here. These little white pearls, as they're called. Note there's only two in the middle. That's a good way to remember this particular butterfly, and it's a good tip for you. Always photograph the underwing as well, because that's where all of the information is that you need for fritillaries. And if we look at this next one taken in South Shropshire, this is at the Wildlife Trust Reserve of Brook Vessons, and this is the small pearl bordered fritillary. Looks almost identical to the other one, but if we look at the underwing, look at all those white granules or pearls basically. So that's the small pearl bordered fritillary. And then you need to go somewhere else as well for another member, the limestone of Wenlock Edge, and you might well find silver washed fritillary. So you don't find all these in one place. You've got to wander the county looking for them one by one, and then your list of butterflies, well, you'll get it over 30 if you really start looking. Let's go up the Longmynd now. I was up the Longmynd on Saturday, and I'll show you why towards the end of the talk, but it's one of those places, again, you've got to make a bit of effort. Fantastic for walking up there. And there's always lots of bird life. If it's only just meadowpipits, that's the most common bird up there. And of course skylarks, lots of skylarks. And one bird, at the moment there were a few still there, and they are still just in a bit of their summer plumage. That nice black underside is the golden plover. And the most prized bird to actually see up there during the springtime is of course the dotterel. Now these are on the gliding station, and yeah, you're possibly wondering if I tell you I've taken this from my car, using the car as a hide. Why is he taking a photograph of birds on the glider station runway? Yeah, it's not a safe place to be. But I was there early morning, and yeah, I'd got permission, or sort of permission. I suppose I was pushing permission to go on in the evening, but early morning would do. And yeah, this is the female dotterel. Isn't she beautiful? Wouldn't you move heaven and earth to go and see that? Well, I did, and sat in the car just trying to get all the angles. And it's unusual in birds. As I said, with insects, the female is usually the less showy, but it's reversed in dotterel. The female is by far the showiest. That's the female, and this is the male. It's slightly more dowdy, and he does all the housework. He looks after the children, the nest and everything, while she goes gallivanting out. So that really is role reversal. And it was while I was photographing this picture, I noticed this lady stomping across the runway towards me, and I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, I'm in trouble now. I'm not really meant to be there. So she marched over to me and I had the window down taking photographs, and muttered those immortal words, "Would you like breakfast?" So yes, so I got invited into the clubhouse for breakfast. And I was, well, menu. I had a bacon sausage and an egg butty, and here they are being served with one of my friends. So there's a cloud after, a lining after every cloud. Yes, and I'm going to nip into Venus Pool now. We haven't been there too much, have we? Just to show you, if you walk the meadows, certainly during April, you've got all these green-winged orchids. There's literally thousands of them now, and it's the best place to see them in Shropshire. It's one of those flowers that you need time to establish a meadow, but time has certainly worked, and they look absolutely fantastic. And in spring, the birds are a delight. I'm always, one of my favourite group of birds are waders, and little ring plovers, that's nearly always one of the first to arrive there in early April. And that yellow orbital ring you can all around the eye, you can always tell them from ringed plovers, which can also turn up, but little ring plovers hang about a bit longer and they often fail, but try to breed there as well. There's red legs, red shank, green shanks and green sandpipers will also turn up, and common sandpiper, there's been one or two there present for the last month or so. They seem to hang around in spring and autumn, so always something interesting to see from the hides there. And from that particular, I'm not going to show you the whole series. I've done this, I know, here in one of my previous talks, but for anyone who hasn't witnessed my great crested grebe with the mouthful, I'll spare you the gory swallowing bit. But after a good meal, it's always good to sort of celebrate, isn't it? Now I'm going to turn my attention to herons today, and herons, these are a little bit grisly, I suppose, but a heron's got to eat, basically, and I've never been more amazed by I've seen them eat a mole and an eel and all sorts of things, a moorhen as well, but they will have a go at large fish, and whilst the grebe took probably about 2 minutes to swallow that last fish, this heron swallowed this fish in about 3 seconds. It was just down the throat, and this was in a burst and then gone. And I thought that was going to be the most amazing sight I would ever see, but literally just 3 weeks ago there's quite a few carp in Venuspool, and they spawn, and there's been lots of fry being caught, and I chanced upon this heron just starting to eat this particular specimen. Now, what's going through it? Is it possible? Can a heron eat a bird a fish that size? There we are. And it was right in front of the hide, so I had no chance to look away. I had to take the picture. I'll spare you the next minute or so while it was lining it up. And yes, you can just about see the carp shape in the throat there. Yeah, so always, despite the fact that they're common, always keep an eye on herons. You don't have to watch them all the time, but just be aware of splashing and something happening. Right, South Shropshire now. And, well, I needn't have said South Shropshire for red kites. They're all over the county now, north, south, east and west, although the north and east is the least populated. But anyway, if you go south of, once you're south of Church Stretton, it should be a regular sight while you're driving along, and the Ludlow, Craven Arms area more so. This is a juvenile one. They've always got fresher colours and quite darker as well on the wing, and they'll be just roaming around looking for their favourite quarry, I suppose. They don't catch live animals. It's always dead prey, and it's usually lambs during the lambing season, and then anything dead they can find at other times of the year. So down in South Shropshire, if you've never been there, there's a little reserve that's well worth going to in the spring if you like dawn choruses and stuff like that. It's called Clunton Coppice, and it's a mixture. You've got either this wood just off the road, there's a car park there, just turn right by the sign, and you can either walk along the road and then up into the woodland, or the adjacent hillside, where the first thing you'll see and hear is tree pipits. It's not a bird you'll see anywhere else apart from the high areas in Shropshire. You certainly don't see them on the lowlands, Venuspool or anywhere like that. So you need to go somewhere up high in a plantation, conifers, etc., and you should find tree pipits. In the woodland you'll also see wood warblers, and these are the most amazing birds. It's a bright yellow warbler, as you can see there, the colours coming through with a white underside, so it really does a treat. And any of the streams in these areas will usually hold dippers. Just look for a bridge, and that's the area to concentrate on. They always nest under the bridges, and you'll see them toing and froing, certainly during April and then into May, as they have young maybe, and just sitting in the middle of the water. And it was just by the village of Clunton that, I'm ashamed to say, this is never a very easy creature to photograph in Shropshire. And I managed to get my first and only shot. This isn't a rabbit, of an otter. Yes, and I have to say, and it's a shame on me, I never even tried. There were pictures all over the local Facebook groups, etc., of an otter that was in residence just down in the river outside here. It was roaming from the county ground to the Welsh Bridge on a daily basis, basically. I never bothered, but there we are. Did anyone manage to see it?
Yes.
No, there you are. Yeah, nature is all around us, and you just got to be lucky or in the right place. Damsels and dragons. Well, I don't know why or how I got into these. I've now photographed every breeding damselfly and dragonfly in the county, and quite a few more in the country. They're fascinating creatures, and this is the first one, if you've got a garden pond, that you get. This is the large red damselfly. And next, the blue damselflies, there's quite a few. This is the common blue damselfly, and they sort of lock themselves together in that, remember, the butterflies sort of embrace. But you can tell with damselflies that it's sometimes love that's driving all this. Yes, I've engineered that one slightly, so it's, I haven't changed it, it's just slightly angled so that the heart rings true. The azure blue damselflies, however, joined together quite differently. This is their modus operandi. You wouldn't think it would work, do you? But he's copulating with her while she's laying eggs. And sometimes it gets really interesting, because not just 2, but 4. Never quite worked what's going on here. Like the males are sparring, like having a boxing match at the same time. And then we move up from damselflies to the smaller dragonflies called darters. It's a common darter, and they basically tie themselves up in a knot and hope, I guess. Slightly up from them are the chasers, and count the black spots on each pair of wings, and you've got a 4-spotted chaser. So it's a good little mnemonic there to 4 spots, 4-spotted chaser. And when you look at a dragonfly, you actually see to the eye from a distance a single dimension, don't you? But if I go in close and looking at the wing, how it's constructed, it's like one of the old World War I planes with struts. It's 3-dimensional. It's got shape, and that's what gives it, when it flies, the lift. And since time immemorial, man has tried to replicate this in the wings of planes and helicopters, but we're not quite as good and not quite as manoeuvrable yet as how a dragonfly can fly. And how about that one? That's a broad-bodied chaser, out anywhere almost in fresh still water during the months of May and June. And most of my photography is done with a long lens, and basically this is showing you with these smaller creatures, if you're lucky enough to get one perched, a macro lens, or your phone nowadays, or a little small point-and-shoot camera is more than enough to get some wonderful pictures like this migrant hawker. That's the latest one in the season to come to us. These all come from abroad, although there probably are a few UK breeders as well. And these will be on the wing until the first frost sometime in October. So if you see a blue dragonfly in your garden, or just generally flying around, it's nearly always migrant hawker. And there we are, going in a bit closer and just looking at those amazing eyes. Aren't they cute creatures? Well, I think so anyway. Some people run away from them. After photographing this, I always open my eye on for an unusual position or a different species, and I managed to find a southern hawker. And I was photographing this. I couldn't get too close to this one because it was up in a tree I had a barbed wire fence in the way, so I could only get this angle. But I noticed that brown blob. Can you see it on the wing? And as I zoomed in a bit more, I said, "Wow, it's a shield bug." So I had this vision now. I waited and waited. I was hoping an aphid would land on the shield bug, so I got an instant food chain. And then a hobby would come along and eat all 3. Yes, so that's nature delivering its bounty. Butterflies? An unusual angle. We all photograph the upper wings, don't we? And that's how we identify butterflies. But sometimes the food plant or what they're taking nectar off, tells a little bit of a story and makes a more attractive photograph in a way. That's a small copper. But That's how we want to see a small copper, isn't it? With sitting on there, this is up the Longmynd on the heather, and beautiful butterflies they are, with that reddish, orangey, coppery colour. Painted ladies, again another migratory butterfly. Most of these come from the continent, and it's been a really good butterfly year. Painted ladies in incredible numbers this year everywhere. I'm sure you've all had them in your garden, and still there was 2 in my garden yesterday. Small tortoise shell, this is another one that we know and love from our childhoods. And the common blue, which even though it's not quite as prized as the silver-studded blue, they are everywhere. These all come into gardens. And the females, surprise, surprise, still manage to have a little bit of blue. So a little bit more attractive, although they are variable, and no 2 females are quite the same. And we're still on the look now for new butterflies coming in, and it's only in the last 5 years that brown Argus has become a breeding butterfly in the county, and Venus Pool is a good place for these now to see. They literally have settled down, and you can almost guarantee to see these in usually July. Just go to the reserve and walk in the pasture behind the car park. It's an amazing sight when they're all in full flow. And I suppose now is the time to admire all the red admirals. They keep going as well, just like the painted ladies, and a lot of these fly from Europe to come and eat our pollen and nectar and have a good time. Isn't that beautiful? It's one butterfly I remember from childhood. It's probably one of the creatures that makes you as one with nature. So red admiral, and we also have white admiral in the county. Only one area though, and that's the woodlands near Dudmaston Hall, although the best place to see them is on the opposite side of the road in the little reserve there. That's white admiral, and there's the underwing. And once in a blue moon, it's usually about every 10 years, we get an eruption of continental butterfly that comes over. Yes, there we are, clouded yellow. I think I took that back in 2008, and last year was the first time they were here in good numbers before then. And how about this butterfly? Oh, sorry, it's a black-headed gull diving into the water. It looks rather butterfly-like, doesn't it? Perhaps he was being chased by this. Yeah. And do you like snakes or not like snakes? I'm sensing a little bit of, you're not passionate. Well, I haven't got any pictures of adders, certainly not in the county, but this is a grass snake, and they won't do you any harm. I suppose in theory they could bite you, but you'd have to be doing something pretty unpleasant to them to force that to happen. So grass snakes will turn. They usually like somewhere where there's water, and these were taken at Venus Pool, which is a fantastic place to see them. They're not always slithering around in front of you, of course. You've got just to the left of the main hide. When we cut the ragwort, it's all thrown in a pile to the left of the hide, and if you just look down the window, the side window, you can often see them, as you see here, just sitting on the pile. That's just taken with a phone, I think, or a macro lens through the side window. Male and female grass snakes cuddling up. Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, I mentioned Wixel moss. I'm going to take you. This is talk about a ball of string. You need a helicopter to get you in and out of this place, I think. Catherton Common, which is down in the south of the county, and turn right at Ludlow, go past Hitterston-Clee, and you're into that general area. If you can find this peat bog, that's an achievement. But I think I've got directions on my website, and if I haven't, just ask. It's one of those places, unlike Wixel Moss, which is all stagnant water. This is running acidic water, and it basically encourages incredible plants to grow, like this sundew. In fact, you always feel guilty actually going on there and walking, because it's literally a carpet of moss and sundew in some of the areas. And as you see there, isn't that an amazing little plant? And the dragonflies there are equally... you won't see them anywhere else apart from this one, maybe on the Longmynd, and that's the golden-ringed dragonfly. It's always one that everyone enjoys. Looks a bit waspy, doesn't it? But it won't sting or bite you. They're all completely harmless. And another one there is the keeled skimmer. which, yes, well, I know and love these two, and I'm now going to show you a creature which I don't know and love. Does anyone recognise it, just out of interest? It's no, it's not a hornet. I'll spare you all the the ritual of trying to identify this one, because I've only ever seen two of these, but I've been bitten by loads of their smaller cousins, the horseflies. And this thing is the dark giant horsefly. If you like statistics, it's actually the heaviest fly in Europe, and you know when one is around, it's a bit like a Vulcan bomber buzzing around him. And in fact, someone said hornet. The first thing I thought, it's the size of a hornet. So this particular one, I saw it and I thought, oh my God, it's a hornet. I started photographing, and I think, well, it's more like a hoverfly, but it was only when I did some research. It's Tabanus suditicus, the dark giant horsefly. And it actually, it's a real pest in Europe, where it literally tears the hide away from cows and horses. And when you get a close-up, you can see the little mouth parts, which they're like sabres and incredibly tough, so it can bite through hide even. And after I photographed this, I went to take another shot, and it had gone. Oh my God! I started screaming. Have some assistance here. Is it still working? It's still working. Yes. After bashing the microphone off, I was relieved to find it wasn't on me, because yes, you would not want to be bitten by one of them. Right. Does anyone like moths? Yes. Well, I've had some interesting experiences. This is only in the last 3 or 4 years. They've just sort of happened, and I was out in the garden and doing a bit of tidying up, and I went to brush these leaves away. I saw these, what looked like a brown leaf on these orchids in the garden, and I suddenly realised when it didn't brush away, it was a moth clinging on, and it's a hawk moth, the eyed hawk moth. And I suddenly realised then that my garden was becoming a bit of a magnet for some of these interesting hawk moths. And another one, which is slightly different, but nevertheless a bit of a brown job, not too attractive, was the poplar hawk moth. And when I saw these two, I thought, well, there's one more. I know there's one more hawk moth that I'd love to see. And basically, the first evidence I found of one was this. And I'll give you a tip. If you've got fuchsias, you may well have these. Does anyone know this particular caterpillar?
Elephant?
It's the elephant hawk moth. Well done. And if you want a clue to its size, well, you know fuchsia flowers. Here's my finger. Nearly the length of your finger. And if you go in close on this thing, I could actually hear him munching, and I watched him. You can hear the munch, and that leaf, literally, the one side of that leaf was gone in about 30 seconds. You just hoover it up. And they get the name because they can rear their head up, almost elephant-like, sort of when they get threatened. So this is the larvae, and that's the problem for you as gardeners. They will eat your fuchsias, but this is the adult. Isn't that beautiful? I think it's one of the most beautiful of the British moths. The last one here, these different angles, looks a bit like Dracula, doesn't it, with the teeth there. So that's a night flying moth, of course. This is a day flyer, and I photographed this on Wixel Moss. This is the ruby tiger, and I was lucky enough to find one, and then incredibly lucky to realise there were actually two. And look what they were doing. It's a sordid life being an insect, isn't it? And I photographed these. They went on my website, on my blog actually, and they sat there for probably about 3 years. I don't know if anyone ever looked at them even. And then I got an email out of the blue from America saying, "We've noticed." Do I have to do an American accent? I don't really do it. We've noticed. I won't. Your ruby tiger moths on your website, could we use them in our book? And I emailed back, well, I usually make a charge, and blah, 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 what are you prepared to offer? And $50 per picture. And I said, well, that's very kind of you. And will you pay the commission? Yes, we'll pay the commission when you do the sort of pay it into the bank. So there we are. I sold the moth, and I threw it for good luck. Can I have a copy of the book? Yes! So never underestimate that random picture you take. If it's on the web, someone might find it, and you might just sell it. And there's the book. It was a children's series on moths, a field guide, insect world, moths. And I just love the words that went with my picture. She gives off a scent. A male moth smells her. He is miles away. He flies to her. They mate. A bit cold, isn't it? It's not like the birds and the bees at all. But now this is, well, if you don't like moths, I will be astonished if you don't like these. These are emperor moths, and they're on the wing in April every year, on the Longmynd, probably Tyston, any of the high areas, somewhere where they can breed, somewhere where they've got the food plants they like. And it is the most amazing moth you'll ever see. The problem is, when you go looking for them, you'll realise, if you go, how difficult this is to get one perch. They never really do it, but I was lucky. And so there's an emperor moth in habitat, and just look at these creatures when they open their wings. Isn't that astonishing? Different colours, it's the males trying to outdo each other so that they get the female. I've never seen a female. That's the most tricky one to get, because she hides in a bush basically and waits for all these males to come and, you know what they're coming for. I've seen enough of that. Yeah, isn't that a beautiful moth? Well, we've had some quite nasty things going on with the heron, etc. So I thought it'd be a good idea to balance it with some cute moments. We need to be smiling. Just resist the temptation to go, you see great crested greaves with their chicks on the back, and as they all slide off, they just sort of play around as if they're in the swimming pool, and just having fun, family fun. Spotted flycatchers, when they fledge the nests, they don't go far. In fact, they usually just stay in a tree nearby and wait. There they are. 3 little baby spotted flycatcher, and they're waiting. They're lazy. They can actually fly. They are of an age, when I photograph this, they can fly, but no, they wait for the parents to come in with food, and so you get the family shot as well. Lapwings, well, they're sort of ever decreasing in the county, nationally actually, in numbers as habitats change and they see more challenges. But there's a picture you don't see very much nowadays, and that's taken at Venus Pool. That's a breeding lapwing pair with one of the parents there with a small group of youngsters through the daisies for once, making it a really nice shot. Swallows. Do you have swallows in outbuildings, some of you? It's always a delight to see them coming, and then even better when they fledge. These are all youngsters, and again, the same as the flycatchers. They're just sitting there waiting for food. We're young, we don't need to do all the work. Wait for our parents to do it for us. And one of these youngsters I noticed being even more canny, and he thought, well, if I jump on the back of one of my brothers or sisters, I'll get fed first. Yeah. But I don't think it works. It's whoever opens their mouth widest, I think, that gets the food. So, these were taken at Polmere Nature Reserve, which is always good for swallows. They perch very close to the hide there. It's just in the Ponsbury area. Yeah, I'm sure some of you know where. By Lee Cross, so not too far from Ponsbury and in between there and Hanwood. Well, back to the water, and this moorhen with chick, doesn't it look touching? Just feeding little morsels to the little chick there. But life isn't always friendly, and with moorhens especially, when there's a female or maybe a habitat, a territory at stake, then things can get menacing and tough. Now, you always know when a moorhen adopts this position that that's basically threat. When they turn around and put their white tail feather to their opponent, that means they're giving in. But if they don't give in, if two stare each other out like this, then the handbags come out, and so do the talons. Yeah. I mean, no one was seriously injured in this, but it's a wonder, isn't it? And how about this heron? He looks like he's spoiling for a fight, doesn't he? Yeah. Get me feathers ruffled, and this was the one he was having a bit of a challenge with. And again, it's all about territory, and they were a bit distant, but they were basically having a real go at each other. And at one stage under the water, but it didn't really look good in a photograph. So I really just had the pictures of them in flight, you know, sort of taking each other on. So just like everything else, when the territory is at stake, they will fight, well, almost to the death. And you'd think nice, sweet, blue and orange, cuddly kingfishers would be nicer, wouldn't you? But nope. When there's a post at stake, yeah, it's mine. No, it's mine. It's mine. The next thing you know, they really are going at hammer and tongs. So kingfishers being not so nice and sitting on a perch, posing. Yeah, this is the car park at Venus Pool, and in those trees there, nice autumn scene, there's lots of nest boxes. And 2 years ago, yeah, one of these nest boxes got taken over. They've been mentioned in the talk already when I showed the giant horsefly. Hornets. A hornet's nest. And if you were at Venus Pool in September and October 2017 and you didn't see a hornet, it was a wonder, because they were everywhere. They were coming to the hide. And don't be panicky about hornets. They're far less aggressive than wasps. You're always much more likely to be stung by a wasp. Hornets will leave you alone, generally. Yes. So that was, these were taken in early September when they just arrived, and I basically just followed hornets along hedgerows and trying to find out where they went, and it leads you straight. They all go back to the nest. And yeah, as it developed a little bit more hornets, and then they started to extend. They got their little papery structure inside the nest box, and by a month later, this is what it looked like. They created all this on the outside of that nest. Incredible. Well, we're into the autumn now. They just walk past the inn caps, have a little stroll along the Severn at Highley, and this is one of the areas where you're guaranteed, if you just keep your eyes peeled and walk along. The team at Ludlow is the same as well. With it's not a true UK native bird, but they've established over the year, and mandarin ducks are always present in these areas, and lovely to see. That's the male, and the female you can see to the right, slightly more dowdy. This is what bird world is all right. The male, there's the female. She's got to sit. This is functional. She has to sit on a nest and not be seen by predators. So she's much more subdued colours. But the male, wow, yeah, he just has to be in your face and beautiful. Drop dead gorgeous, and that's mandarin ducks. I'm just going to give you three. Well, they're not major rarities, but birds that everyone loves to see. It's classically the bird that turns up on a vicar's lawn, the hoopoo. So there we are. There's the hoopoo. There's another one of a hoopoo. And would you believe we've had bee eaters in the county? Yeah, this was in 2013. It seems 6 years ago now. And after they've eaten so many bees, that blackling there is concentrated 20 or 25 bees coughed up as a pellet. And I mentioned I was up at the Longwind on Saturday, and the reason why? Well, we had a Lapland bunting. And this is only the second one ever in the history of birds in Shropshire that's dropped in. It was found by a friend, and he woke me up on Saturday morning. Phone was going, and I was there about an hour later photographing this Lapland bunting, and didn't it give some lovely pictures? That's what I mean about the low angle. And I'm sure many of you enjoyed that one particular bird that was in the dingle in 2017. Yeah, there's the dingle. There's the flowers, and just behind all that willows, etc., is the pool. And home to the pool was this night heron, and everyone took it to their heart. He was became a bit emaciated as the winter went on, and got taken into care. So he wasn't quite as good looking as you see here, but there he is perched up with. It's a male with summer finery. But nevertheless, he's in a sanctuary somewhere and being looked after. And we're still waiting to see if it's accepted, because it's an American knifed heron, and if it's accepted, it'll be the first occurrence in Great Britain. So there you are. Come on, you can do it. I'm going to finish with something offbeat now. Shrewsbury U3A, November. Why would I be there? I've only ever been there once, and Yes, the salmon leaping. It's not the best photographs, but you can basically just stand there on the railings and watch these salmon leaping out of the water and trying to make it up the the weir, basically. Yeah. And there's always someone, isn't there, who tries to get one step ahead of the rest of the photographers and get in everyone's way. And I don't know. I hope he's not sitting in the audience. I'm in charge. I'm a professional. I'm going to go and sit in front of everyone else and occlude the view. But nevertheless, there's that fish just beached himself, and he's photographing it now. I hope he wasn't tempted to put it in his bag. He'd have been arrested for that. Yes, protected species. But then I turned my attention to the top of the weir, where a family of swans were sort of just messing about, and I thought, wow, that one's getting a bit near to the edge. You be careful. Don't go near the edge. That's a weir. It's not a good place to be. Oh no, what is going on here? And I thought he was going to fly. There's no way. It's quite shallow, and turbulent water rocks the rest of the weir. But hey, he's going for it. They just glided down as if to say, yeah, I meant to do that. And finally, little owls. Don't you just love them? Oh, that's my favourite. And really finally, I'm just going to show you this buzzard, because this buzzard was feasting and then flew away to give me this shot, basically. And this shot has been used, just a little advert for a book that's about to be released in December, The Birds of Shropshire. And there's the bird that spawned the cover picture. That's the actual cover of the book. It's 540 pages. It's been 6 years in the making. There's at least 240 or 50 pictures, half of which are mine. And it's absolutely full of good things to read about the birds. It's a must for any bird watcher, and anyone serious about nature. Just get it. Basically, it's a fantastic book. The main price is going to be £45 after December the 1st, but it's £25 if you order it before then. So have a Google online, The Birds of Shropshire, or look at Shropshire Ornithological Society's website, and you can find the forms to send off, or just simply order it online. So with that in mind, I wondered, have we got time just to do a 6-minute audio visual? Yes, we're going for it. This will put you in the right frame of mind for The Birds of Shropshire. If it works this time. Where's Venus Pool? You know where Cross Houses is? You know, just outside Shrewsbury. Yeah. Basically, go to Cross Houses. It's about a quarter of a mile past there, on your right, you turn right. There's by the gypsy encampment, as I call it. Just turn right there, go for about half a mile, passing the entrance to a hall on your right, and then you'll notice a little pull-in car park. There's room for about 20 odd cars there on your left, and basically park your car, turn left, walk down to the pool, which you'll see, and the main hide is right in front of you, and then or explore elsewhere. There's sign boards everywhere so you can see where to go. Yeah, have a good day out, or morning, or whatever. Yes?
What's the lifespan of a butterfly?
Not very long. They don't, I mean, they're, sort of weeks really, yeah, if that, days, possibly, which will be due to lots of things. Birds eat them. The weather, it can all have a big impact. They don't none of them overwinter. They all just leave eggs, which either hatch. They're exactly the same. Yeah, they spend a lot of their time under water as a larva, but then emerge in the spring. So it's all geared to, no matter what nature throws at us, they've found a way to survive it all. The what, sorry? Yeah, you mean in Shropshire? Yeah, I don't think anyone. There's lots of theories, and the biggest problem is habitat and changing habitats, and ironically, some of the predators gaining a foothold. Things like foxes. Basically, curlews were more, nested in lower ground. They're now retreated, basically the high places like the Almond, etc. And they don't do very well where they're disturbed. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the idea is to keep any sort of 2- and 4-legged predators away from them, basically. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That sounds like an individual nest. I'm not sort of aware of individuals. Oh, right, no, I wasn't aware of that, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I've spared you that then, haven't I? No dullness here. Thank you.
AGM, but there will be a speaker afterwards. We hope the AGM won't take too long. You've all had a supplement this year.